divide to make it feel contemporary. I was dubious at best. Now, after watching the first episode, I can honestly say I am hooked. But it didn't happen until a good 24 hours after I saw the show. Sure, the show was pretty cool, actually. The tone, the tempo, and we'll get into it a little later in the show today, was pretty slick and intriguing. But no, it was actually the opening scene, which, forgive my ignorance, I thought was part of an alternate version Earth, because that's the backdrop of Watchmen in the comics, turning out to be a recreation of the Tulsa riots, an actual event that took place in 1921 that I can assure you was never taught in schools. I have to say, that really hit me. For all my griping, and I've done it in past shows about today's generation mining history, most recent history for fake outrage these days, this opening scene was certainly not in that class. It did what great art is supposed to do. It enlightens, it educates, it shines a light on something we may not have known and are horrified to learn that it did happen. It gets us researching and thinking and talking. It's everything great art is supposed to do. Bravo, Mr. Lindelof. That Trent Reznor score didn't hurt either. Secrets of the Sire is brought to you by the Superhero Tour of New York City. Discover where your favorite superheroes save the day on the Super Tour of New York City. Receive 10% off with the code SECRETS at checkout. That's SECRETS. Go to secretsofthesire.com/onlocation. Secrets of the Sire starts now. Secrets of the Sire. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Secrets of the Sire. We talk comics, movies, TV, and pop culture every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern on the Sire Studios digital network, youtube.com/Sire Studios, facebook.com/Secrets of the Sire, twitch.tv/Secrets of the Sire. Tonight, Jared Leto trashes the Joker. We do Truth or Trash for the episode 9 final trailer. Should you watch The Watchmen? And Kevin Feige rules Marvel. Before we go into anything more, The Sire, which is our namesake of the show, is on Indiegogo right now. A really cool event happened last Thursday. The Sire debuted on Evil. It was a very quick, blink if you miss it, cameo appearance by the awesome artwork, awesome pinup by Andrew Mangum and Gene Jimenez. So turned it into the Sire Evil variant. It's on Indiegogo right now. You can go to SireStudiosInc.com/evil, and it'll take you to the campaign. Just trying to raise $500 to print up some variants of the Sire Volume 2 trade, with that as the cover, plus some bonus material as well. Go check it out. I am your host, Michael Dolce, joined as ever by my co-host, Mr. Hassan Godwin, Lord of the live stream. How you doing, sir?
Yeah.
Let me ask you, more excited for the episode 9 trailer or the Watchmen series, like before we actually saw it on Sunday?
Gotta say episode 9. Because does it are we gonna
tickets are going like crazy apparently.
Are we going full disclosure? Because I didn't even know the Watchmen was debuting.
I knew it was debuting, and then I forgot it was debuting, and then I wasn't excited for it.
Also, Mr. Robot started. Someone told me.
I think it's the
Mr.
final
Robot
season for that too.
Season 4, I think.
Yeah.
Either season 4 or 5. I think it's 4. And I didn't even know about that thing. So yeah, I'm completely out of the loop.
Yeah.
I watched Impulse season 2 over the weekend. So that was what I. That's.
Oh, okay.
That's
Yeah.
where I was.
Yeah. I got you.
Yeah. I mean, look, episode. I'd like to see the trailer. I'm dying to see something from this new movie. That gets me excited to go see it. I am obligated to go see it because I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and I've been there since day one.
Yeah.
And, well, not day one, but the premiere of episode 4, back when it was called Star Wars, back in 1977. And I am that old, and I'm all right with it. and I want to see how it all ends, how it comes to an end. I'm, going with a bunch of friends who are all of us were there in the beginning. We will all be there at the end, God willing. So I just need them to show me some stuff that gets me excited. A lot of people, including myself, have this notion or feeling from the end of The Last Jedi that's like, well, they didn't really leave it on a kind of cliffhanger that made you excited to see what was going to happen next. So, look, the visuals I've seen so far have been pretty spectacular, but visuals are not hard these days. They are very hard, but they're not hard.
We will give our trailer truth or trash.
I'm not going into what I think about the trailer. You asked me a particular question about
I
whether I was
got you.
excited or not.
Okay.
But anyway, it doesn't matter.
We will go into it.
If you want to move on, we'll move on.
I had asked you which one were you excited for?
Yeah, and I was explaining to you, but then you were.
I felt like you were tipping your hand.
How can I tip my hand
as to whether this was a truth or trash for the trailer, which we will get to next segment. Right now,
how could I? All right, okay.
We will get into our Sire Bites, brought to you by On Location Tours. Discover where your favorite superheroes save the day. On the Super Tour of New York City, you'll see over 40 filming locations for movies and TV shows like The Avengers, Spider-Man, and Jessica Jones. Receive 10% off.
Had to cut me off to make time for this.
Secrets at checkout. SECRETS at checkout. Heroes, comics, and more. All right. Joker approaching R-rated record. The Warner Brothers pick. This is according to Hollywood Reporter. Directed by Todd Phillips and starring Joaquin Phoenix, is well on its way to becoming the top-grossing R-rated film of all time. At the global box office, not adjusted for inflation, Deadpool is the current record holder with 783 million in worldwide ticket sales through Sunday. Joker's global total stands at 737.5 million after 3 weekends in release. The film is expected to take in ultimately close to 900 million globally. Some even think it is a shot of approaching $1 billion. One person who's not happy about this is Jared Leto. This also recently came out over the weekend. Jared Leto fumed over Joker, tried to cancel it. Kim Masters reports that the actor who played the Joker in Suicide Squad was furious after learning about the standalone film. When the Oscar-winning actor learned of the Todd Phillips project, he not only complained bitterly to his agents at CAA, who also represent Phillips, but asked his music manager, Irving Azoff, to call the leader of Warner's parent company. It's unclear whether it was Jeff Bukes or AT&T's Randall Stevenson, depending on the timing, to cancel it. The idea was to get Warner's to kill the Phillips film. Can't say you blame him.
I don't even know why that's a story, because they did the same thing with Flash when the Flash was going to be in Batman versus Superman.
Oh,
and we already had a Flash TV show that was in its second or third season by then. I think it's second season,
right?
And they were like, well, and they're not incorporating that Barry Allen into the movies and whatever. And they were like, this is an unfairness to. This happens. Now, the difference is between Jared Leto and, these are two movie Jokers, which I myself think it's ridiculous. I think the whole thing is ridiculous. I think the Joker movie, beautifully done as it is, and whatever misguided statement it's trying to make or wasn't trying to make, or what everybody thinks it's trying to make, I don't know. I don't see how it... I see financially the logic behind it. I don't see. You see that? I don't see how it serves the ultimate purpose of their shared universe. Now maybe they've given up. The DCEU has given up on trying to follow the Marvel formula.
They have. They've essentially.
They haven't officially said it, but maybe they have.
Yeah, they have. They haven't. There's not like a. No, I think in press releases they pretty much alluded to the fact that they don't care anymore.
They haven't said it then. If they've alluded to it, then they haven't said it. So I mean, like, okay, I just don't know why you would do that. Like, why would you greenlight one movie that may or may not hamstring another of your own movies? But I mean, look, it's not. I don't make that kind of money, so I don't have to make those kind of decisions.
I mean, I think it's just funny because Jared Leto's, and I read another report about this report, and they're like, maybe if he hadn't sent rats to his co-stars, his method acting was not exactly, met with a lot of.
But what does that got to do with anything?
Camaraderie.
I mean, that's him. That's him being a quirk. I mean, if you don't like his quirkiness, fire him. Don't do another movie just to crush
No.
him,
They weren't. They weren't. But it was essentially his take was not received very well, and
I mean, look,
off-screen behavior was not received very well.
All right, fair.
And I kind of feel bad for him in a way because apparently they shot a lot of footage with him.
But here's the stupidity. Joaquin Phoenix's Joker is now, for all intents and purposes, more famous than Jared Leto's.
Yes.
We're never going to see his Joker. We may never see his Joker again.
No.
So how smart was that? Because he's not going to be in the universe. He's not going to be in the DCEU.
Yeah.
He's not going to be in Suicide Squad. He's not going to be in any of these other movies.
Yeah, and this is, the funny thing is...
And now you just lost Jared Leto, from what I understand.
Sure.
Because he quit, or he was fired. One way or the other. And it could be either one, the way these things work. So now you've lost the Joker you did have.
Yeah.
The super famous contemporary flavor of the month Joker that we do have is not going to submit to your serial movie agenda.
Right.
So what have we gained from all that?
Yeah,
we gained one good movie. Thank you. That's controversial and your mileage may vary. I think it's a really beautiful movie. Well done. I don't know if I liked it. We've already discussed it.
Yeah.
And we're never going to see that character again. It's kind of like it's kind of the same bait and switch that we had with Heath Ledger. Of course, there was tragedy that caused the Heath Ledger thing. But watching Heath Ledger's Joker and knowing you're never going to get that Joker again.
I know.
Is so now we're doing the same thing again with Joaquin Phoenix, who thankfully, thank God, survived his the filming of it, is still alive and is capable of doing many more. But rightfully, so for his own career and his own sanity, he doesn't really want to, according to what he said. He wants to do more Joker movies of that Joker in that universe.
Yeah, I know. He's not crossing over.
Yeah. So I mean, like, okay, what did we gain from that? I mean, we gained some consternation. We gained the fandom menace, right? Who is screeching at, well, goodbye, Jared, because we didn't like you anyway.
And
off you go. Great. What do we get now? We didn't technically win anything.
No.
So, I don't blame Jared. I think if he played it cool, he would have come out of it all.
I feel like
sympathetically.
If they had shown more of his scenes, we would have gotten more meat to him. I mean, he really had such a minimal impact on Suicide Squad because he was barely there, and he was simply there to trigger Harley Quinn. There was Tom Hutchinson.
That's the fault of the genre in and of itself, because they should have. I mean, by the time but if this was the MCU, we would have had 5 Joker movies out already.
Right.
There would have been 2 Joker movies of him specifically with Batman.
Right.
And then there would have been at least 3 or 4 where he just popped in.
Like Tom Hutchinson said, if you remove him from Suicide Squad, it's a better movie. And I don't disagree with that because I think there's just a lot to that where he doesn't really contribute. All right. When we come back.
It's kind of tough for Tom Hiddleston to say. That's kind of a little mean.
Trailer Truth or Trash. Plus, a little later and on in the show, who watched The Watchmen? Apparently, a lot of people did. Hi, this is Michael Dolce, host of the Secrets of the Sire podcast and creator and writer of The Sire, the superhero forced by his own costume to fight evil. It's kind of like having a spider sense, but instead of warning him of danger, it actually puts him in danger. I want to talk to you about a super cool event in the Sire world that just took place on Thursday, October 17th. My character was featured on an episode 4 of the hit CBS show Evil. It featured a pinup from our most recent trade, Sire Volume 2, Lost in Time, and the artwork was by Andrew Mangum and Gene Jimenez. I got to tell you, it was one of the coolest things ever to happen to see my work featured on TV, even if it was just in the background as set dressing. So to celebrate, I thought, why not create a campaign featuring Andrew and Gene's amazing pinup as a variant cover to the original trade. It's also a great way to introduce the Sire to the Indiegogo community, which is something I've been wanting to do for a long time now. So if you like 90s superhero action about a guy who has no control over being a superhero and has gotten critical praise from sites like Newsarama, Comic Buyer's Guide, Wizard Magazine when it was still around, and more, then you've come to the right place. So let's celebrate the Sire's appearance on the hit show Evil on CBS, and let's welcome him to the Indiegogo community together. Thanks. Welcome back to Secrets of the Sire. We do this every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, talking comics, movies, TV, and pop culture. Just a reminder, as you just saw the commercial, and I mentioned it last segment, that the Sire is on Indiegogo right now. Go to sirestudios.inc.com/evil, and you can check out our Sire Evil variant as seen on the hit CBS TV show last week. That was my big TV news. I guess the big one this past week, though, was the final trailer of Star Wars Episode 9, and we give it our trailer, truth, or trash. Hassan, your thoughts on what you saw Monday night at halftime. Did you end up watching the football? Did you watch the ball game to sift through it?
No. I did not.
Most of Twitter, as I was sifting through Twitter, it was just like, wow, football. And clearly my timeline of people are your people.
I'm not a sports guy, period.
Yeah. So
as my physique should tell everybody.
They really harped on the nostalgia. We've mentioned in previous episodes the idea of pandering and this and that. This one was a shout out to the fans. This trailer was.
Yeah, I think they had to because of. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of even the people who really like these movies have felt that there's a substantial amount missing from these movies in conjunction with the other two trilogies.
Yeah.
Emphasis really on the droids. Emphasis on some of the keynote characters. Definitely the R2-D2 is completely sidelined this entire trailer. You know, I mean, like literally R2 was an absolute hero. He was baller in the first two trilogy, especially in the prequels.
Yeah.
Where they had him flying around. I mean, a lot of people hated that, but I mean they had him doing like way more than he was able to do. And that's just because the CG had made it possible for them to do more with it. But and in this, like he was under a tarp in the Force Awakens, and then he was kind of just on the Millennium Falcon to say hello to Luke in the Last Jedi, and it was like, all right, I understand you want to make way for BB-8. And new droids, and Poe Dameron's going to have his own droid. Everybody has their own droid. That's great.
But that inherently is the problem with these sequel trilogies. The sequel trilogy in and of itself is that you're literally telling two stories, in that you're introducing all these new characters, but you're also telling this complete story of the second one. So it could have been done. It's just the same argument that we were having before. It's just marketing and whatever. And when you start to design your story off of how you're going to market your story, instead of designing your marketing off of the story that you've written, you're going to get what we have now. Now, look, I don't really like
the sequels, but I am done trashing them. I don't think they're terrible movies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're, I don't think they're bad movies at all. I don't think they're
Well, I
really
don't think
great.
The Last Jedi is very good. I don't think that was very good.
I just don't think it's a good story. I will stick to my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
My wheelhouse is these are not good stories.
Yeah.
Right? So, okay. That said, the trailer looks really good. I'm finally intrigued as to see how this all kind of wraps together. There's certain things I want to happen. Wraps up. But
do you know what's really funny? What I thought was really funny in the trailer is that, like, it kind of starts out with this ominous, and you got the Emperor and talking about all this, or whatever it is. And there's just one scene where everyone just kind of like gets into the Millennium Falcon and just sits down. So, okay. Oh,
hey, what's up? How you doing?
And
Yeah,
I'm
and it's
really
like,
like
okay.
that. You needed that for the trailer? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, no, but I'm not going to complain. The trailer was really good. The trailer was really good. The trailer is what I had hoped for.
I liked Finn riding a space horse.
That's okay. Luke rode a space, whatever a tauntaun was. It's okay.
Oh, yeah.
It happens.
Yeah.
They showed Rose. Rose is alive. Rose lives.
That stupid Rose. She gave the one thing that Finn had going for him in Last Jedi was this wonderful arc that she ruined. Instead of letting her,
they'll pick it up. I have a strong feeling that everybody's going to get their due in this movie because I think one of the good things about it is because there was no set story. They're able to course correct. You know? And
they will. J.J. Abrams will.
Yeah, I mean, if it was a George Lucas story,
what do you think J.J. Abrams' reaction?
If it was a George Lucas story, you'd be SOL. He'd be like,
right.
I'm doing it what I want. I don't give a damn about
what do you think J.J. Abrams' honest reaction to Last Jedi was? Because what J.J. Abrams basically did in Force Awakens was like tee up.
I don't think he's. I don't get an impression. I get the impression that J.J. Abrams, and I'll never work with him after I say this.
Never know.
Is a Hollywood guy. His father. I mean, he's a son of Hollywood people. He was born into the lifestyle.
Yeah.
I don't think he takes things. I don't think he approaches things as an artist.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So he makes things.
Right.
He's a movie. I think he looks at himself as a director and a movie maker, not a writer.
Yeah, I agree.
Or storyteller. And there's a difference between it. So I think he gets it. I made that movie, and then I'm done. I made my statement, and I'm done. And then they came along, and they made it better or they made it worse. And now Disney calls him like, JJ, you gotta come back here and fix this. And he's like, okay, if you want me to, here's my price, and I'll come back and I'll fix it my way. I don't get the impression from him that he is some kind of, that he holds any kind of emotional attachment to the work that he's done. Because look how easily he walked away from Star Trek.
Yeah. But
he
was never, that was the whole thing, though.
And I mean, the best of the Star Trek
guy,
movies was the third one. Yeah. But that's what I'm talking about. He's able to do
supposedly
these
was
things.
a Star Wars guy, though. See, supposedly Star Wars is where his heart has always.
But his Star Wars wasn't all that much better.
No, it wasn't.
His first Star Trek. So I mean, that's what I'm saying. Regardless of the passion, doesn't really have anything to do with him.
Right.
He's a craftsman, right? He's gonna like the guy who makes your chair, right? He makes damn good chairs, but he doesn't have any. I made that chair. All right, you sit in it. I sat in that chair for 20 years. It broke. Can you make me another one? Okay. That's not like that chair. I went to the ends of the Amazon jungle and chopped down the oldest tree for the wood for that chair. He doesn't. That's not his connect to it. So I don't get an impression that He didn't react the way Rian Johnson did.
No.
Rian Johnson had a visceral reaction to his stuff, which poured gasoline on the fire.
Right.
Right. So J.J. Abrams was like, "Look, man, you like it, you don't like it, I got paid. I'm out. I'm
Yeah.
making my next thing." I don't think he doesn't care. There's a very big difference.
Sure.
But I just don't think he's got an emotional investment into these things. So I don't, and then didn't he come out and say, although, like I said, this is a Hollywood thing, didn't he come out and say that he really wished he was directing The Last Jedi because he read the script and it was amazing? That was what he pretty much said after The Force Awakens dropped and made $2 billion. And now he's going about his routine of building up the next chapter for the franchise that he is part of. That's kind of the way the system works, right?
Standout scene in this, and this ties into what you're saying.
Segue.
Rey and Kylo Ren trashing Darth Vader's remains. I thought that's what that looked like.
Which probably means Kylo's going to get redeemed. Yeah, for Kylo.
It strikes me as anti-J.J. Abrams to show that in a trailer, considering from the naked eye, it looks like something that is very obviously happening, just like you said, it goes against JJ's MO.
Maybe
right?
So. I think they would have been brave if they kept Kylo evil.
I hope they do. I don't.
I just don't.
I don't need a redeeming.
Well,
no, they won't. You're right. They won't. But I don't need a redeeming arc for him. I don't need to see the same thing again.
I just don't think that they. I don't think we're going there with that. I could be wrong. And hey, I'll be happy about it. I'll come back here to where we are right now and admit I was dead wrong.
That's the part that kills me about all these new movies, is that they really had an opportunity. Instead of everyone sitting there saying like this is the end of the Skywalker saga, it's like, well, no, we had the end of the Skywalker saga, and it was great. It was the the birth of the greatest villain, or arguably the greatest villain of all time, and the redemption of the greatest villain. We had it. We had it in 6 films. And instead of the true completion of the Skywalker saga would have been Luke Skywalker, having some sort of real arc, not being, mitigated to something, to kind of being a secondary character. He's a secondary character if you're starting something else new. The last 3 movies that they did, the last 2 movies plus this one that's coming out, to me could have been the start of your next 6 movie trilogy versus the closing, quote unquote, of the 9 episode trilogy. And that to me, I think is always going to be the greatest.
They chase the money, man. They follow the money. When you do something like Marvel, and you have, you have, what do you want to call it? Like 50 years worth of stories that you can pull from. The job is easy. Yeah. It's not easy, but the job is simple. Stick with the story. Stick with the core story elements of what you're doing. Give people a good show. Yeah. Stick with the material, and the material will take you somewhere, because the guys writing that material knew what they were doing. When you come around and you try to duplicate the MCU with Star Wars, but by bringing in these fledgling writers who all have dubious, and I apologize, guys, but they all have dubious writing credits in the first place.
Don't apologize.
They all learn, they don't have, they're not Chris Claremont. They're not, they're not John Byrne. They don't have these like 40 years worth of experience of storytelling. So, and then they're like, okay, we just want you to tell some really great stories about this thing, but it needs to have a through line, and it needs to, it needs to adhere to certain nostalgia points, and also needs to adhere to various points of mythology, and it also needs to adhere to a through line for the last 6 movies.
I know.
You're gonna give these people that to do. They're gonna fail.
Yeah.
They're gonna simply fail. You get one, and I'm not even saying you should have gotten Lucas. You get one guy in with an idea. Everybody agrees that's a great idea. Yeah. And we work to execute that idea. Right? And then you have one through line, then you could build threads on top of it. You could build on top of it. But you can't just have people just jump in and, hey man, this was the last movie we did. you pick up the story like a
Right.
game of telephone. You can't do that.
Bringing the Emperor
Can't
back,
do it.
yeah, bringing the Emperor back is a last-ditch effort, which I hope pays off. I really do. I hope it brings some
But I mean,
cohesion.
so other people have said if the Emperor is truly back and it's not an illusion or a delusion or something like that because of where they are, then that means that solidifies the failure of our original characters, our original heroes. Because they failed to kill the Emperor, they failed to destroy the Empire, they failed to reestablish a new republic, they failed as parents, they failed as heroes, they became smugglers and underground generals and whatever Lando is, or recluses on. We don't know what Lando's going to be. We don't know if he's still a rebel general or if he's, or recluses on some mysterious island with fish people on it. And it's like, okay, how did this do my characters justice?
Yeah.
It didn't. So fine. That may be stories. Do not come and try to sell me the nostalgia aspect of it.
Yeah.
When you're killing these characters off. That's not what you're doing. You're not this is not nostalgia. Okay? So I mean, I get stories move on, characters die, characters change, heroes become villains. That all happens perfectly fine. Do it the right way. I got nothing to say to you about it. But don't murder Han Solo in one movie and then hire another actor to play younger Han Solo and then try to sell me a lame-ass Han Solo story, after you've just murdered him just for an emotional beat and threw him off a bridge into a bottomless pit. These characters mean something. You paid $4 billion because they meant something.
Yeah.
Treat them like they mean something, and you didn't. You treated them like all we have to do is show them, and the people will come. And
We'll see. Real fast before we go to break and get into our Watchmen review, which I'm sure will be heated.
Not
who was the voice?
I have nothing to say about Watchmen.
Who was the voice? Was that Anakin at the end?
I don't know.
Oh,
maybe.
Nice. Got a little Anakin back.
Maybe.
Well,
we'll see.
We will see, and we'll be doing our Star Wars event in
Everybody
December.
in the world is going to dissect that thing beyond all measure. It'll be like an alien, corpse in the wreckage. Everybody's going to take a scalpel to it.
Yeah, well, we will be doing our Star Wars Spectacular Extravaganza live from Funny Business in Nyack, New York in December. Date and time to be announced because we're taking a vacation, bro. We got 2 weeks off. It's crazy. All right, when we come back, who watched The Watchmen? Turns out everyone did, and everyone's got an opinion. What
I want to feel for Rian Johnson as a creator is that he turned in the most kick-ass Star Wars script that was going to flip the script on the entire saga, and Kathleen Kennedy and everybody else like, no, we can't do this. What else you got? And then he turns into the first draft of the Star Wars fanfic that he did when he was 15 years old. He goes, well, I got this also. And they're like, we'll make this. This is brilliant.
Secrets of the Sire.
Welcome back to Secrets of the Sire. Again, we do this every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, talking comics, movies, TV, and pop culture. Secrets of the Sire is brought to you by all of our beloved patrons, dedicated fans, Tom Osa, Craig Caruso, Einar Peterson, Matt Byer, Ashley Haikai, Omar Morales, Brian Phillips, who's getting married Friday. So congratulations, sir, and good luck.
Brian.
Steve Ovecki, our program director, Stephanie Dolce.
In England. It's England right now.
It's what?
Steve Ovecki is in England right now.
Oh, is it for the Comic-Con out there, right?
I think they're promoting the one of the Printed in Blood publications.
Well,
in England right now.
God save the Queen. And as always, our Uber fan, Christina Dolce. All right. Been dying to talk about this. I talked about this in the cold open, actually, too. I was not excited when they announced a Watchmen TV series. But I was sitting there going, kind of agreed with Mike O'Neill and David Rosenberg, who frequently comments on our Twitter feed, which is great, and our Facebook feed, and it was like, oh my gosh, why are they're just mining this comic book series? It's going to be, I don't know, it didn't even look very impressive. It was very dreadful. Then I actually watched the first episode, and I got to tell you, I am like 100% hooked. Like unbelievably hooked for a number of reasons. One, which I mentioned in the cold open. At first, and this is going to sound horrible, but whatever. At this point, I think you and I were talking off air. I don't really care at this point. I'm over cancel culture. So, and I think the general public is so. I'll be free to.
Well,
talk
that's the
about-
problem with cancel culture. You could be over it. That doesn't mean you won't be canceled.
I mean, with the exception,
they'll still cancel. But we're nobodies, so we can't really be canceled.
Well, I was going to say, with the exception of the Sire Evil trade paperback, which I mentioned earlier in the first segment, which is on Indiegogo right now. You can go to
oh boy, yeah, kill time. Go ahead, keep doing it. Keep doing it.
Evil, and you can go right to it.
Oh my god,
I don't have anything else going on, so yeah, I don't care. Cancel culture is not going to affect us because we don't have anything to be affected by. But no, I want to talk real about that opening sequence and just the show in general, which I thought was actually very, very intriguing. When the first 10 minutes came on, I'm just being drop dead honest. Because Watchmen takes place in alternate realities, alternate Earths, alternate versions, alternate timelines, I literally thought I was watching the first 10 minutes. I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is Damon Lindelof doing, it felt very like, wow, I guess he's trying to build up this analogy or this allegory for race relations. He's bringing race relations in, and in a way he is, don't get me wrong. I had no idea it was based off a real historical event. That the first 10 minutes was the Tulsa massacre of 1921. Didn't even know that existed. Unless we're all, in the Matrix right now, and it's a piece of history that was inserted into Wikipedia, which I guess we would never know if it was. Apparently this was a real thing, and it was horrifying. And after reading that, I gained an even greater level of respect for what Lindelof was able to do by showing that piece of history that we just didn't know about. To me, it took off the table.
Well, don't say we. You didn't.
Yes. Yes,
right.
me.
Okay. I know. All right.
It took
I'm
off.
just making sure the we, so I don't get canceled by my own.
Here's the thing. I'm actually like super praising the idea of what he did there, because what he actually did was bring to light something that I had no idea had happened. I had no idea existed. Was not in any conventional history book that I'd ever read about. And
just like the never mind. Keep going.
Well, the Tuskegee Airmen too. I mean, that was another story that we didn't really learn about until filmmakers actually did something about it. To me, it was the greatest example of what art can do, and
the draft riots, and there've been a number of like really horrendous moments of civil unrest aimed at particular groups of people.
Yeah. No, so it was actually able to not only be entertaining, but when I originally thought to myself, like, oh my gosh, this feels... pandering is not the right word, but my initial reaction to that opening scene was...
I don't understand why... that's the curse of our current atmosphere.
Yeah.
Is that every attempt to do anything... This is the biggest piece of consternation about it. If you show the moon landing,
mm-hmm.
Are you pandering? Are they pandering to white people? For Neil Armstrong landing on the moon. Or they got the movie Midway coming out. Are they pandering to World War II veterans? Or to I don't understand. Like every time there's a depiction of someone who's
I did not use the word pandering. In fact, I said it's not. No, I said it's not pandering. I said pandering is not the right word.
You said it in context of having to recorrect in thinking that no, this is not, because that was the initial thought.
I thought originally it was over the top messaging. Versus what it actually was, which was depicting something that I had not known had actually existed, and bringing light to some historical event that has great context into what we may or may not be experiencing today. In that in that vein. It was also something by to me, having an event like that kind of, put in front of me, and then finding out, oh my God, this really did happen. Like there was, that was, it was big.
Okay. I don't know. This is why I don't want to talk about. I don't know what to say about that. Okay.
I'm just saying. I'm applauding what he did.
I get you, but I mean, like, you would have thought it was pandering.
I would have thought if it
wasn't real.
Right.
So it's like, why?
If I didn't think it was real, then I would have. I literally would have just. I would have thought that he was constructing some sort of, pseudo commentary that is, because Watchmen is an alternate reality. You have Robert Redford as the president. You have obviously Nixon was president. There's only, what is it? There's two presidents for the past 30 years. There's all this stuff where it's like, don't. I just figured it was one of those things where it didn't have the same kind of impact, I guess, is really what it came down to. And then finding out that it was something that was real. I don't want to harp completely on this opening event.
I didn't want to talk about it at all.
No, but
okay.
It was okay. It was a major thing. It was a major.
I don't get that. I mean, I've been hearing that left and right. Like, it's either. I mean, you didn't use the word pandering, but I've been hearing about like pandering and, like wokeness and whatever. Every time that's anybody who is depicted in anything who's either a woman or a person of color or something like that, it's a pander. So like, then everything is pandering in a sense, No, every depiction.
No, because the whole reason why something might be pandering now is because of the political chatter that goes on that there's a lot of groups that are sitting there saying this needs to happen and this needs to happen, and then the art is now, it's not.
But we're already talking about that. Like, didn't we talk about like the fact that clickbaiting is polarizing everything? So
yes,
the chatter that goes on around something isn't the fault. If you like, the people who discuss the art in the gallery are not people who get to dictate what that art is, and so. When you get a piece of art and you get 50 people around and they say, "Oh, this obviously is, again, this is a statement against fascism," whether or not the artist actually intended for that to be, then suddenly that's taken as gospel because 50 people around it were talking about it, and then people are like, "Well, this guy shouldn't be allowed to paint if he's going to keep painting these subversive paintings and inflicting them on us."
Right.
Meanwhile. The artist never got a chance to talk about anything that whatever the intention was, and the art, the image, one person decided what that image meant and then spread it like a disease, spread the hysteria like a disease of what his impression was, and suddenly that's all we're talking about.
Right.
And no one is, that's pandering. That's what pandering is. That's the piece itself isn't pandering. The hysteria around it is pandering. We are being pandered. Our rage is being pandered to. Is being provoked by people who know that what these hot buttons are.
Right.
And so the cure for that is not to respond to the hot buttons, not to have hot buttons in general about these things. But I mean, that's why these discussions always make no sense. We're not really talking about. You and I are still not even talking about the actual incident.
So let's talk about
the show in and of itself.
Well, let's talk about the show.
We're not talking about the history of it. We're talking about the fact that we didn't know it, and then all of our impressions because of it, and how it works into the milieu of whatever our day to day, whatever. It's that's where the hysteria is perpetuated.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, the show itself, I don't know oh, man, I want to swear so bad. I don't freaking know what the hell that show is supposed to be about. And I'm sure a couple episodes in, it will,
you did eventually read the graphic novel, correct?
I read the graphic.
No,
I hadn't read the graphic.
Right.
I hadn't read it when I saw the movie.
Right,
I saw
I
the
remember
movie
that.
before. I know.
I remember that. I fired you,
I
and
remember
then-
you finding out about that.
Yes, I
in
fired
that
you, and then I
discussion.
rehired you because apparently
That was years.
I broke some
years
unemployment,
before we had a show.
you know.
You fired me before we even had a show. Okay, because we had a discussion in the Palisades Mall when we were coming out of the Palisades Mall, and I was like, "Oh, it's great," and you were like, "Oh, they changed the ending," and I'm like, "I don't know what was the original ending," and you were like, "Oh, you didn't read the book," and I'm like, "No," and then you were like, "Oh, you." So I guess you fired me there.
Yes,
because you read me the riot act while we were in front of the
and with
movie
good cause,
theater.
and with good cause.
Maybe it is a seminal work, and I had not read it. So yes, I have read it. I have since read it in V for Vendetta and all the other, and the Dark Knight Returns. I had read the Dark Knight Returns and Year One and Kingdom Come. I had read all those by then. By the way, just in my defense, I had not read Watchmen. Watchmen was very dense, though. That's a very dense book to get into, especially by the time I came around to it, and it was being highly recommended to me by other people, and everybody's handing me this giant because it was you can't take it in a separate issue form after a while. You can only get it in graphic novel form. So it was like it's like someone handing you the comic book equivalent of like the Bible.
Right.
There, read this, and tell me what you think about this, in 2 weeks. So it was really dense. I didn't like the art when I was young.
Oh man,
I know. When I look at it now, it's fantastic. But when I was younger, I was,
if you notice also.
If you notice the image stuff, you guys coming through skylights and like double page spreads all over the place. Like you had to have that. If you didn't have that, you weren't doing anything in the night.
If you notice, Dave Gibbons is the only credited.
Yes.
Guy on this. Alan Moore refuses.
What a surprise! What a surprise! Alan Moore has walked away from. Well, I mean, look, whatever they're trying to do.
The reason I brought up, did you read the graphic novel, was to A, confirm that you did, but B, also is the fact that the thing that I do like about this is, spoiler alert, the end of the graphic novel ends with Rorschach's journal ending up in, and this, by the way, this is a sequel not to the movie, this is a sequel to the graphic novel, that I did read that.
Because it kind of demonstrates that by the reign of
right, which at first I was like, "What the heck's this?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, okay." So, but it ends up in the offices of the New Frontier, the Daily, whatever it is. I think it was called the New Frontier. Mm-hmm. And Adrian Veidt is talking to Dr. Manhattan. He goes, "Well, in the end, did it? What happened? And did I win? Did it work?" And Dr. Manhattan says, "Nothing ever ends," and that's kind of like the thing about that that's so great. So to me, this is obviously it feels, and this is a big nod to Trent Reznor, who did the score, by the way. The music, the whole vibe of the show feels like the graphic novel. There's something about it. It's on edge. There's, race was not a big factor in the original graphic novel, but that being said, this is now 30 years after the graphic novel. So,
well, there was no race because there was only one black person in the entire book. So,
no, but I'm saying
the kid who was reading the comic book next to the
and the guy who owned the newsstand too. He was a black guy. Or no, the scientist. No, the psychiatrist. The psychiatrist.
Yes, the psychiatrist
was also a black man. But that's not the point. The point in the 80s was to talk about the growing nuclear proliferation and the concern that eventually it was going to overtake us all. That was the whole purpose of the original graphic novel. So now turning it into something...
This is the other thing. I don't understand this hysteria about let's get politics out of our art. Read Dark Knight. Read Watchmen. There's nothing but politics. I mean, that's what makes those books so fantastic.
But that's what made the opening of this, I think, so significant to me, because it was not telling you what to think. It was merely opening your eyes to something. It made me want to research.
Nothing is telling you what to think.
You can tell, And this is where the
No,
pandering.
no. This is
You can always tell.
Listen to how
when
you're about to
something-
phrase this.
When something is trying to make you believe something versus allowing you to have a discussion about it and to come to
Give me
an
two
understanding.
examples. Give me an example of something making you believe something versus something that's opening a discussion for you.
Off the top of my head, I will not be able to do that because that is not. I can't think of things. Usually, I don't watch stuff or read stuff that I immediately will detect and say, this is clearly this artist is influenced by this artist is influenced by that. Nick Spencer is a good example. I think his whether you are pro Trump, neutral on Trump, or anti Trump, you can go read his Captain America run, and everything is representative of Trump being. His political views are infused in that in a way that is overt and obvious, and is overtly and obvious. And again,
more so overt and obvious than say Frank Miller's views on Reagan during the Dark Knight.
The difference between the 80s and now, though, is social media. And the difference between the 80s and now...
The difference between the 80s and now is that you're living now and you were a child in the 80s.
No, that's
and you
true.
Didn't know what that stuff was going on.
Agreed.
That you're not going to tell me that people were not thinking, oh, this guy's trying to tell me how to think. It's no one's telling you how to think. They're telling you how they think.
Yes.
And then so you either choose to accept how they think or you don't. But nobody's trying to make you think in any particular way. Even when they're telling you, Mike, if I look at you and say, Michael, you have to watch this movie because it's the greatest movie in the world. I'm not trying to make you think the way I think. I'm just vehemently explaining to you how powerful I found this particular piece of information. And I want you to experience it yourself. But that's not me saying you need to think this way. I think you need to agree with me.
And here's a good example too, right? Star Trek, where John Cho's character is in a same-sex relationship. When my dad had no context to that, except he knew that George Takei is an out homosexual, he actually kind of shrugged it off and laughed when he saw it because he says, "Oh, that's kind of cute. It was a nod to George Takei. I see what they did there." However, the response to that in a lot of ways was when John Cho went on his marketing media tour, it actually negatively impacted people's views of that because there was, again, this belief that there's a pulpit.
There's that comment.
What comment?
There's this belief that they're not. If you say to me that Star Trek,
so no one wrote anything about this. No one wrote. So clearly, anytime if I read articles or I read something else like that, that whole in your mind that never holds validity in an argument. Oh, these people think this, and people no. I'm telling you, there is a general consensus.
I believe that those people believe that. I believe it. Yes. I am saying the film was not trying to sell you anything. That's what I'm saying.
But if the actor who is in the film, and the director is going there saying, "Yes, we did this so that people would do this," well, that is them trying to sell you an idea.
We did this so that people would do what? What was the saying? What was the comment?
When John Cho, his major thing is, well, I want this to be I want this to be a time when this doesn't even why does this have to be even discussed and spoken about? I can't wait for a time when this is a non-issue and this and that.
How is that any more of a sale than?
I'm not reading his quotes directly. All right, I'm trying to paraphrase. I'm trying to paraphrase.
Then I don't understand.
But they're trying to sell.
Substantiate it.
I am substantiating it because you
can't substantiate it with a.
You will only accept, Hassan. You will only accept an argument when you can literally point out Article 5 X. I'm literally paraphrasing for you.
No, you've got that backwards. You present things as an argument, as a cogent, tangible piece of an argument or a tangible point of view, because several people share that point of view. but then you can never substantiate the several people that share that point of view. And then whenever I ask
just
you,
gave you examples. Yes, you just asked me. You asked me for 2, and I just gave you 2. I just gave you 2 examples.
I know, but I disagree with the examples. What are you talking about?
That's my point.
All
roads lead
okay,
to
so
you.
hold on. What is your logic? What is your logic that you presented me with a cogent argument, and then therefore I'm supposed to be convinced, or I'm supposed to react to the argument that you gave me? What you did.
I'm merely saying you're setting up everything as if
you're misunderstanding that. I am not. You said they're selling you something, and then I said, okay, well, how's that selling you something? And you said because John Coe said X, and so I said, well, what did John Coe say?
Or John Cho?
I don't know. Whatever he says. I said, well, what did he say? And then you said, well, I can't tell you exactly what he said. So I'm like, well, okay, so then that's
but I was paraphrasing.
But I'm like, okay, yeah. But how is it? So are they selling phasers also? Are they selling Klingons? I mean, like, it's a fantasy world. How is it being sold to you?
During a marketing tour.
I know, and then what did I say?
They are literally.
How did this discussion start? It's the ancillary media that goes around the piece of art that gets judged as the piece of art. But the piece of art itself is not doing anything. It's all the ancillary material that goes around it.
Yes.
We've had this conversation 1,000 times. Well, then you discuss the ancillary material. You don't discuss the piece, because the piece isn't saying anything. The piece basically showed a man and another man holding hands and talking to a little girl, walking off into the distance. That is the extent of the homosexual lifestyle that is sold to you in Star Trek Beyond, right?
Correct.
Now, if you have an issue with homosexuals, that will be a problem for you. But it's not selling you a lifestyle. It didn't even mention it out loud. It didn't even mention it
with the marketing around it.
That's intellectual dishonesty, because that is not
before you go and see the piece of work.
That's not the argument you're making. You're making the argument about the marketing around it.
If you hear about a song before you hear it, and before you get to read the lyrics and interpret it in your own way.
We were having 5 minutes ago.
If you get to interpret it a different way before you get a chance to actually hear it and see it or listen to it, it obviously.
And then what did I say?
Different
you got to decide not to be triggered by the hot buttons, right? Didn't I say that earlier?
Yes.
So it's these hot button things that people are trying to get you to do because they're pandering to whatever various outrages that you have.
Correct.
Right? So then you got to ignore your outrages, or you got to ignore the material altogether. But the art itself is not to blame for these things.
That being said, I thought the first episode of Watchmen transcended all of what you are talking about. To me, it was a continuation of the graphic novel in a very intelligent, sophisticated, and
I don't see how it was in any way in a continuation of Watchmen. I'm sure in the next few episodes. I'm sure in the next few episodes it will be more of a cohesive attachment to whatever the previous material. But what I saw there, if it wasn't called Watchmen and the owl wasn't in it, the Hermes, whatever, I would not have. I would have made no connection to it.
Well,
Archimedes, excuse me. I would have made absolutely no connection to it because.
Oh, not even.
And then the little clip of Dr. Manhattan. Yeah. Yes, Ozymandias may or may not have been in the show. Basically with his robot, either he's a robot or his two companions are robots, which I'm leaning on his two companions being robots.
Right.
Because of the weird manipulations that guy is up to. But I don't know. Yeah. I think. I look, it's a piece of genius. I don't know if I like it.
That's fair.
But it's a piece of genius, in the sense that it is probably the bravest thing I've ever seen Lindelof do. because even though he is, again, adapting previous material, pre-established material, and again, he's like, he's wishy-washy on what his intent is whenever they talk to him, and he's wishy-washy about the end, and he ends things terribly, and he sucks at a lot of stuff, in my personal opinion. But this is probably the most ambiguous attempt at something that he's ever tried to do. This strikes me probably as his most honest desire to tell a story, because he in no way is being obvious about anything. So that's that in and of itself, because of who we're talking about.
Sure,
that's significant.
Yeah, no, I thought.
I don't know if I liked it because it's another. It's just another thing that's gonna get us all pulling knives at each other, and I'm not interested in having knife fights with people about this. Well,
according to Deadline, the premiere drew 1.5 million viewers.
Really well.
Strongest digital debut for HBO since Westworld. So the question,
how that went, right?
Question of who watches The Watchmen? Apparently everybody. My last comment before we go to break. The only thing I didn't like, and this is my own personal, this has nothing to do with the politics of it actually at all, is that Rorschach ended up being the symbol for white supremacy.
Well, he was, though.
In the graphic novel?
Mm-hmm. If you read his journal, he was anti-immigrant, he was anti-gay, he was he was very much so.
Valid. Very valid in that sense.
And his entire speech in the beginning about this, the cesspool falling apart, and the people always cry out for help, and I'll say no. It's very manifesto-ish.
Well, yes, very manifesto-ish. I get why he is. I guess what I was saying was the reason I didn't like it is I love Rorschach as a character. You love his vigilantism. So
it's like everybody loves Wolverine, but Wolverine is a freaking mass murderer. So I mean, we love him.
He's the best.
Like we love John Wick, and he murders people on a regular basis. Doesn't necessarily mean
no. Right.
You love him because he has good lines. He has good one-liners, and he's powerful. He doesn't take any crap. He's like, like in Braveheart, where the guy was talking about Wallace, and he said, uncompromising men are easy to admire, right? Because the guy's not going to change his point of view for anybody.
Right.
But it doesn't mean he's a good guy. It doesn't mean he's...
No, right. I mean, that's my point. He was just one of my favorite characters. So to see his mask be the representation, but you actually make a very valid point in terms of why that is. And again, I'm not even knocking the decision. I know it's going to make sense, and we're going to learn about it. So I'm open to why he is seeing that. But there was still a part of me that goes, damn, he was my favorite character in Watchmen. And it's like, well, can't root for that now.
It's you can still root for it. I mean,
well, I'm not rooting for white supremacist.
You're not. You're rooting for Rorschach.
Yeah, but he's dead. So, spoiler.
Then what was the point of this conversation? End the segment. End the segment. End it. Done with this segment.
When we come back, we go spinning the racks. It's a heated last segment. Gotta love it. Another heated segment every week.
This is my last show.
It's about time.
Getting out of this chicken.
We do this every week. We go spinning the racks.
Spin the rack. Spin that rack.
Kevin Feige runs Marvel Comics. So now what? This was rumored for a while, but then I lovingly got a.
You lovely.
I lovely.
Lovely.
I lovingly got an email in my inbox from Comics Beat. So this is taken right from Heidi McDonald's Comics Beat newsletter, which is fantastic. Obviously, it's been run on multiple other outlets since then, but I like keeping the comic book roots here, especially for Spin the Racks. Welcome to the coldest take on the week's biggest news. This happened last week. Kevin Feige will be taking over Marvel Publishing. along with television as part of his portfolio, with the added title of Chief Creative Officer. Two things that became clear the more we talked to people. This is from Heidi McDonald. This move had been in the works for a while, and it was aimed more at the TV side of things, with the comic publishing side more of a bonus prize for Feige. The newsletter continued. Marvel Publishing will definitely move to Burbank at some point in the unspecified future, which is interesting for our friends who are at Marvel. Ryan Penagos, Ricky Purdon, I feel really bad for because he was at DC, and then DC moved to LA, and he managed to snag a position at Marvel, so he didn't have to move anywhere.
Darren like
Sanchez as well too. Darren will welcome the opportunity because he's an empty nester. All three of his kids are out of the house.
But it's kind of crazy just to uproot and it's like, oh, we want them all to be here, you know? And it's like, why would you consolidate everything? And then that means that your influence and your reach is going to be that much more diminished. You know? I mean, look how well it's working for Warner Brothers. You know, it didn't exactly.
The thing about it, though, is this is more speculation at this point, according to Heidi McDonald, so it's not necessarily something that's going to happen, but the option is more than on the table than it's been in a while, so we'll keep an eye on that for our own personal connections to the company. But, again, this is not a surprise. Most of Marvel TV has been winding down. Legion ended its run. Marvel TV had a very public misfire in ABC's Inhumans. That was canceled. Probably Inhumans, probably the biggest fail for Marvel, right?
That's because of Perlmutter, right? Isn't that
Ike Perlmutter? Yes, he was disliked.
Isn't that strongly blamed on him? The
Bob Iger,
the fate of the television.
He's the Marvel
genre.
chairman.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And supposedly he hamstrung the television division or something like that, and it got taken down because originally when it was Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was just starting and the Netflix shows were just starting. It was definitely sold to us as all being under the same umbrella, but
it wasn't.
Well, it eventually wasn't. I think there was some consternation along the way, and then they just never tied those threads together.
The Gifted was canceled after 2 seasons. Live action New Warriors project, it was supposed to go straight to Freeform. That got canceled. Animated Deadpool with Donald and Stephen Glover, that fell apart. And Ghost Rider with Gabriel Luna also fell apart, citing creative differences. The result is a slate. Marvel's 2 current live action shows are Runaways and Cloak and Dagger. The latter show ended its 2nd season with no word yet if it will receive a 3rd. So Marvel TV
I think
head.
Runaways is the Runaways is just starting their 2nd season.
Yeah,
right?
and they're at Hulu, and Hulu is going to be Marvel's mature line. I know you sent me the article about Jessica Jones and Charlie Cox maybe continuing on. I saw the same thing with Wilson.
And I know there's a crossover between the Runaways and Cloak and Dagger.
Yeah.
So, I mean, whatever they're trying to do, they're still very much trying to do it there.
Yeah, I mean, this is all from the TV side of things. We understood, obviously, with San Diego Comic-Con going into big depth about the Disney Plus shows, WandaVision and Loki and all this stuff, and then it's really building off of the movies now. Feige taking over that is kind of, just is what it is.
If he can keep up the energy, I mean, that's a lot of work.
I know.
If he's gonna be, he's gonna spread himself through. I mean, we don't know because we don't know what it's like to do any of that stuff. But if he spreads himself too thin, it could just be it could be just as disastrous.
Well, that's why they say the publishing end, and that's why we're saving this for a Spin the Rack segment, where the publishing plans seem to be just kind of like an added bonus. There is, does he even like periodical comics, they ask. I'm told Feige does seem to have a real reverence for the legacy of the print origins and those who created it, which is kind of obvious in his work, I would imagine. Disputes with the Marvel Creative Committee aside, he has strong working relationships with Dan Buckley and Joe Quesada, who has the current title of Exec VP Creative Director. Marvel publisher John Nee is not mentioned, but I'm told he's still in place. So is Sana Amanat and C.B. Cebulski, who are also still in place. The most likely scenario is that Marvel Comics will run much as before, with maybe a little more direct input as an R&D department for the MCU. That still leaves Ike Perlmutter, which you mentioned earlier, in charge of the purse string.
Mhm.
However, and while he can't legally be entirely banished, he's being painted into an increasingly smaller corner at Marvel. So no big changes just yet, but I think the biggest change would be the location change, again, for a lot of our creators. But, most of the stuff is done outside of, a central bullpen. There hasn't really been a central bullpen. I mean, it's not like the Stan Lee and, John Romita and, Jack Kirby days where everyone's kind of working in the same building anyway.
Yeah.
Most people are kind of scattered. But, I mean, I'm curious with something like, say, House of X, right? And the new X-Men series, the new Excalibur,
which you liked, right? Ultimately,
Yes.
as it wrapped itself up, you ultimately liked it. A
lot
of people,
I loved it. I actually,
excuse me.
I think
It's a big deal.
I think that it's it has some inherent continuity flaws, but what doesn't? But what it
As we talked about, those particular little things, those little niches.
But what I liked about it was it actually felt grand, it felt permanent, and it also kind of explained away a lot of the deaths that we had seen. Well, now there's this immortal X-Men. People, and whether or not that's going to really hold true or not,
I haven't read it. Oh, I haven't finished it yet, but okay.
Which one are you up to?
Huh? I just haven't finished the series yet.
Oh, you didn't get to the bubble, to the balls? No, gold balls. All right.
You were talking about something other than that. I just said you liked it. We don't need to go into it.
I thought you finished it.
I haven't finished it. Just keep moving.
All right. So the reason I liked it, but it's increasingly interesting to see now, okay, with X-Men entering the Marvel Universe, like how cohesive is this going to be? The way I always view the comics, and we'll see, DC,
I don't know if they're going to do that, though. I understand what you're saying, if they're resetting or retooling the universe so that they can make it more cinematically favorable.
Aligned.
But you're the average fan.
Yeah.
Now you got an audience out there who are in love with not only the original X-Men, the cartoon X-Men, and the movie, the cinematic X-Men verse, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So now you're gonna toss in this brand new storyline that just happened, that just hit. Now it's very popular with comic book fans.
Yeah.
But not in mainstream, and that's just because of the medium in and of itself, not because of any popularity. So, I don't know if they're gonna just flip the script on the entire genre,
right?
Just to accommodate this comic book, this recent comic book flip, the reboot, and kind of maybe potentially alienate everybody else who are like Logan fans and people who are in Days of Future Past and stuff. Now all of them know that their movies will be rebooted, that those movies have ended, and they're aware of the fact that those movies are going to be rebooted. But I mean, to reboot them and then just say, everything you used to know and none of that's real, and Moira is immortal, and like little things like that. I don't know if you'd risk that marketing wise.
No, but the way I always looked at the comics though was that it is I don't want to use the word minor leagues, but it's essentially a staging ground for new ideas. To do it in a very, to us it's expensive, but to the movie people it's very cheap to put, $10,000 into a comic book to see. So really, if it's a 6-issue run, you're putting $60,000 into developing new characters, new plot lines, new storylines that could eventually translate into $1 billion, $60,000 to make $1 billion. You know what I mean? So. Yeah. Even if they have a miss, like let's say a series costs $120,000, you're making most of that money back anyway just by selling books. So it's not like you're really losing $120,000. You're investing $120,000 into a 12-issue run of a series. You're breaking even essentially, so you're basically spending nothing to potentially make $1 billion later on. I mean, I think that's
in theory, it works like that in theory.
Hopefully that's
if you could arrange arrange an assembly line of product and durability and testing, testing, like that that and viability. Excuse me, that's the word I was looking for. Then that would be a very lucrative system if you could set it up. Unfortunately, like we've been talking about with Warner Brothers, they haven't been able to. I mean, Warner Brothers has had to drop on the MCU for almost a decade, right? Yeah. And they, the MCU had to come along and establish a program to show them exactly, how that system would work. So we'll see.
No,
a lot of times the logical and the obvious is not the choice that anybody makes for some reason.
Real quick before we go, Trent Reznor soundtrack, Watchmen. How great was it? Come on.
If you're a Nine Inch Nails fan, it's really great.
I actually really thought to myself, A, it sounded like Fight Club to me. A lot of the music reminded me of like Fight Club scenes, which I thought was awesome. And then B, I was like, wow, this guy, whoever. And then I saw in the credits, I saw Trent Reznor. I was like, oh,
yeah. I can't really comment on any of this stuff yet. I have to see like, and I'm not even talking about like, I don't want to talk about it.
No, just the score,
I know, but I really didn't. I watched it rapidly.
Okay.
For a particular reason, anyway, and so I didn't get a chance to absorb the soundtrack. And also, I need to see it again, and I need to see a couple more episodes to see where it's going. I recognize it is quality made.
Yeah.
I like the lead of the. I like the two leads. I like Don Johnson. I like.
Yeah.
He made such a great movie once. There's a great Don Johnson movie I'm going to give a shout out to called Dead Bang. It's fantastic. Mm-hmm. It's one of my favorite Don Johnson, and it was many years ago. It was like 25 years ago, but it's a fantastic. He's incredible in it. I've always liked Don Johnson, so I'm kind of sad about that. But I'm sure he'll be back in flashbacks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because they're definitely going to have to go back and explain.
It was a bold move.
Stuff. Yeah,
it was a bold move.
I mean, yeah,
move,
but it is and it isn't because it's very contemporary. It's very post Game of Thrones ish. Mm-hmm. Dead, deal with it. Kind of, checkmate. You gotcha. And it's
for me,
very post Game of Thrones, post Walking Dead kind of circumstance.
It wasn't the question that he died. It was sorry, spoilers. It was the question of I thought he was going to get blown to bits. Like there was so many times where I'm like, oh, he's dead. Oh, he's good. Oh. Wow, no, he made it.
Yeah,
no, he died.
Because those are those little red herrings where it's like, oh, there it is. Here, and then when you get to a certain point, it's like, oh, I guess he's all right. I guess he's safe. We're gonna walk through the whole thing with no, we're not. But
next week. We'll continue our conversation with Watchmen because episode 2 will be on, and I don't know what else is going on. We will also
Goodbye.
Terminator.
you Terminator. Can talk about it.
New Terminator. That's another thing. Yeah. Looks kind of good. All right. See you guys next week.
Secrets of the Sire.